What happens when a smug judge mocks two women in his courtroom, thinking he holds all the power? He didn't know they were elite U.S. Army veterans ready to flip the script. What unfolded next left the entire courtroom speechless. The air in the courtroom felt electric, the kind of charged atmosphere that makes your pulse quicken even if you're just there to watch. Conversations hushed as soon as the double doors swung open, revealing Ebony and Ivy Coleman, identical twins, yes, but there was nothing ordinary about them. Ebony with her immaculate white blouse and Ivy, rocking a tailored navy blazer, walked with a purpose that commanded attention. Every step of their heels echoed against the polished floor, like a slow drumroll announcing their arrival. They weren't here to make a scene, at least not intentionally. Their purpose was clear: to challenge an unjust eviction notice. Simple enough, right? But nothing about this courtroom or the man sitting smugly at the plaintiff's table suggested simplicity. The landlord, a balding man with a face carved into a perpetual sneer, leaned over to whisper something to his lawyer. Whatever it was, it made his thin lips curl into a grin that could boil anyone's blood. The moment the twins approached their table, a low murmur rippled through the gallery, the kind of murmur that carried equal parts curiosity and quiet judgment. Judge Grayson silenced it with one sharp rap of his gavel. The man was infamous for his abrasive demeanor and rulings that often seemed to tip in favor of the privileged. His reputation preceded him, and his narrow-eyed glare only reinforced it. He scanned the twins from head to toe, his expression dripping with disdain. When he finally spoke, his voice carried enough condescension to fill the room. "Ladies," he drawled, drawing out the word like it tasted bitter. "Do you think dressing up like you're at a corporate seminar will impress this court? Perhaps you're confused about the difference between a courtroom and a fashion show." The gallery chuckled. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to feel like a slap. Ebony's hands curled into tight fists under the table. Ivy gave her sister a quick look, a silent message. "Not now. Don't take the bait." The hearing began, but it didn't take long for Grayson to make his feelings clear. He interrupted the twins at every opportunity, his tone dripping with sarcasm and thinly veiled hostility. "Let me guess," he sneered during one of Ebony's points. "You two think you're entitled to special treatment? Maybe you've been watching too much television." Ivy, ever the composed one, calmly rebutted his interruptions with facts, her voice steady and unshaken. Ebony followed suit, presenting their case with meticulous detail. They pointed to the landlord's questionable practices, highlighted the illegal clauses in the eviction notice, and presented evidence that painted a picture too clear to deny. Every carefully constructed point seemed to make Grayson's face tighten further, his annoyance simmering just below the surface. But he wasn't done. He leaned forward, his gaze cutting into them like a blade. "You two may have fooled some people," he said, his tone like ice, "but not me. I can see right through your type." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. The gallery gasped, the sound sharp and collective, like the courtroom itself couldn't believe what had just been said. Ebony's jaw tightened, but Ivy placed a calming hand on her arm. Their eyes met briefly, a silent pact not to let this man rattle them. The tension in the room was unbearable, a taut string, ready to snap. Every person in the gallery leaned forward, waiting to see what the twins would do. But Ebony and Ivy stayed rooted in their calm, their resolve unshaken despite the storm of injustice swirling around them. The marble lobby of the courthouse was grand, cold, and unforgiving. Much like Judge Grayson himself, Ebony and Ivy stood still, the weight of his words hanging over them like a storm cloud. Moments ago, they had walked into the courtroom armed with evidence and conviction. But now they were left grappling with the raw sting of public humiliation. The murmurs of the gallery, the smirks, the judge's venomous tone, they replayed in their minds like a bad song, stuck on repeat. Before they could gather their thoughts, a reporter swooped in like a vulture sensing fresh prey. A microphone was thrust toward them, the camera's red light blinking like a warning. "Miss Coleman, care to comment on Judge Grayson's remarks?" The reporter's voice was sugary, sweet, but her eyes sparkled with a hunger for controversy. This wasn't about justice. It was about getting a juicy soundbite. Ebony took a step forward, her jaws set and eyes blazing, but Ivy, ever the strategist, placed a firm hand on her sister's arm. "Not here," she whispered, her voice calm but unyielding. Ebony hesitated, then stepped back. The reporter frowned, sensing the missed opportunity, but didn't push further. As the twins turned to leave, the sound of deliberate footsteps echoed. Behind them, they didn't have to look to know who it was. Judge Grayson's presence was unmistakable. A dark cloud that seemed to suck the air out of the room. Flanked by 2 security guards, he approached with the swagger of a man who believed he owned not just a courthouse, but the very idea of justice itself. Well, he drawled, his smirk cutting through the space between them. "Running away. Already? I thought you two had more backbone." Ebony stopped mid-stride and turned slowly, her expression unreadable. But when she spoke, her voice carried a sharp edge. "We're not running, Judge. We're walking away because this is beneath us." Grayson's smirk deepened, the kind that made you want to roll your eyes and throw a dictionary at him. Simultaneously, beneath you, the arrogance. He paused for dramatic effect, his eyes narrowing. "I hope you're ready to lose." Ivy, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward. She wasn't just calm, she was ice. "We're not the ones losing, Judge. Your bias is on full display, and it's embarrassing. For you." For a split second, the mask slipped, his smirk faltered, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear or maybe anger. It was hard to tell, and it disappeared almost as quickly as it had come. He straightened his tie and delivered his parting shot. "Watch yourself, young lady. Disrespecting a judge doesn't end well." Ivy held his gaze unflinching. Neither does disrespecting justice. They didn't wait for a response. The twins turned and walked away, their heels clicking against the marble floor in perfect sync. But as they reached the courthouse steps, Ebony's composure cracked. "Who does he think he is?" She hissed it, pacing near the curb. "He thinks he's untouchable, Ivy. He doesn't even know who we are." Ivy leaned against the car, her arms crossed, and watched her sister with a small, knowing smile. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and deliberate. "Then maybe it's time we remind him." Ebony stopped pacing, her frustration giving way to curiosity. "What are you thinking?" Ivy's smile widened, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Oh, you'll see." The courtroom was electric with anticipation. Every seat was filled, and those who couldn't find a spot lined the back wall, craning their necks for a better view. The twins' first encounter with Judge Grayson had become the talk of the town, and the public was hungry for more. The moment Ebony and Ivy Coleman entered the room, carrying a duffel bag between them, the energy shifted. It was the kind of tension that makes you hold your breath without realizing it. Judge Grayson, perched high on the bench, looked less than thrilled. The increased attention seemed to irritate him, though he tried to mask it with his usual air of superiority. Leaning forward, he spoke with a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Coleman," he began, his tone laced with sarcasm, "I trust you're ready to continue wasting this court's time?" Ivy, always the picture of composure, stepped forward. Her voice cut through the murmurs like a knife. "Actually, Your Honor, we'd like to submit new evidence." Grayson arched an eyebrow, his expression shifting between curiosity and annoyance. "New evidence," he echoed. "And what exactly would that be?" Ebony unzipped the duffel bag with deliberate precision, the room silent except for the sound of the zipper. She pulled out a neatly organized stack of documents, a handful of glossy photographs, and a tablet. "This," she said, firmly, placing the items on the defense table, "and this." The gallery leaned forward in unison, eyes wide with curiosity. The court clerk approached, taking the tablet from Ebony and connecting it to the courtroom's projector. Seconds later, the screen at the front of the room came to life. The first clip showed Ebony and Ivy in full U.S. Army tactical gear, leading a training exercise with precision and authority. The footage transitioned to images of the twins coordinating humanitarian missions in disaster zones, their uniforms covered in dust, but their resolve unshaken. Another clip showcased them instructing a group of soldiers in advanced combat techniques, their commands delivered with unwavering confidence. The room erupted into a wave of whispers. Even the landlord, who had been smugly observing the proceedings, seemed taken aback. Judge Grayson, however, was a different story. His face paled, and for a fleeting moment, the mask of control he so carefully maintained slipped. "You failed to do your homework, Judge," Ebony said, her voice cold and unrelenting. "We've served this country in ways you can't even imagine, and now we're serving justice, starting with you." The judge opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Ivy stepped in, holding up a folder. "But that's not all. We've also uncovered evidence that your star witness, the landlord, has been falsifying documents and engaging in blatant racial discrimination with his rental policies." She turned to the landlord's lawyer, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "Care to explain that?" The landlord's lawyer stammered, trying to form a coherent response, but Ivy didn't give him the chance. "We have receipts, literally," she continued, flipping open the folder to reveal pages of incriminating paperwork, bank transfers, fake notices, and a lovely little paper trail of your client's unlawful activities. Grayson's gavel slammed down with enough force to echo through the room. "That's enough," he barked, but his voice lacked its usual authority. The gallery wasn't listening to him anymore. They were too busy buzzing with shock and outrage. The tension reached its peak, and the judge's next move was clear to everyone in the room. Reluctantly, he announced his recusal from the case. It was a public admission of defeat, a blow to his carefully curated image. The landlord, meanwhile, was left stammering as the possibility of criminal charges loomed over him. When the twins finally walked out of the courthouse, the crowd outside erupted into cheers. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, but Ebony and Ivy ignored them, their focus unbroken. As they reached their car, Ebony allowed herself a rare smirk. "He'll think twice before underestimating anyone again," she said, tossing the duffel bag into the trunk. Ivy smiled back, her eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. "And if he doesn't, we'll be here to remind him."